Are you feeling overwhelmed by endless tasks, a sea of notifications trying to get your attention, keeping you distracted? Struggling to find time for what truly matters most? Stick around, friend, because in today's episode of the Better Than Best Academy, we're diving into a transformative coaching conversation I had with my guest Tyler about finding that rhythm of rest and work, overcoming distractions, and stepping into your true God-given purpose. We explore the challenges of managing time and prioritizing our faith and our family and our work. And Tyler shares his struggles of trying to balance it all, trying to juggle it all, while still staying true and aligned with what God has for his life. So tune in for practical tips for cutting out distractions, staying motivated, and aligning your actions with your God-given goals and purpose. This conversation is packed with wisdom and actionable steps to help you live a more intentional and fulfilling life. Also, you'll want to definitely stick around to the end because I'm sharing a huge opportunity for us to truly make an even greater kingdom impact. And with all that said, let's dive into today's episode. What would be the most meaningful outcome for you in our conversation today?
Man, I would say probably just to retouch on positivity and fixating your eyes on the Lord, because it's real easy to get distracted and get tempted and then forget about all the effort that requires.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm excited about the most here.
I'm so grateful for our conversation. And like you said, I think it's really important for us to realign our focus on what matters most.
Yeah.
Because even within your podcast, the kingdom business, it's the kingdom before the business. And it's very easy for us to lose sight of the major things in life by worrying about all the things that were out of our control. I'm really curious, what's one area in your life or business where you feel maybe stuck or frustrated in right now?
Oh, dude, that's a long list. Man, obviously it's time. We only get so many hours in a day to do anything. Working full time for a pipeline company and then trying to run 3 different businesses and build them up and then be a husband and a father all at the same time, and then still try to actively seek God in everything that you do in all those things. I would say not having enough time is the biggest struggle for me. And then always that constant worry of, am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to have enough time to do all this? I'm only 28. How old are you?
31.
31. So we're still relatively young.
Yeah.
But I still have that anxiety and that worry, just keeping God in the top priority, number one priority of my mind. That's where I kind of combat that anxiety and anxiousness, I guess you could say. Yeah, that's really what I feel like, what I struggle with the most is just worrying that I don't have enough time to get everything done and do everything that I want to do and that I feel like I'm being called to do.
Unfortunately, it's very common for us to feel like we don't have enough time to do all that we've called to do. And I'm curious, I like to ask that question, but then I also like to ask the opposite to help reframe our mindsets when we get into those spaces. So I'm curious, can you think of a time when you felt fully aligned with who God created you to be? Like, what did that look and feel like?
Dude, it was very humbling. That's what it felt like. It felt very humbling because as men, we get caught up in our pride. And whenever I had that first encounter of the actual Holy Spirit, the first time I ever felt it in my life was just a couple of years ago. It was a real hard look within, get to the mirror, and it was just only just acknowledgement, self-awareness, but it was like just acceptance that I was not this great dude, that I was not this great husband, I was not this awesome, extremely like just top tier person that I always tried to be and think of myself to be. It was really humbling having that first encounter with God and really just coming to honesty with myself.
Yeah.
Just really just letting go of all of the lies and all of the past things that I had done wrong and all of the effort that I used to put into justifying all the things that I did wrong before. Humbling would be the word for me, yeah.
Definitely, and I agree. The best men are still man at best.
Oh, okay.
Meaning, like, even the best men, the best leaders, the best people that we can look up to, at the end of the day, they're still human.
Exactly.
They're still flawed, created beings, not the creator of all creation. And I think that's a really interesting thought that, and it's beautiful how humbling it is when we do encounter the Holy Spirit.
In the same sense, it's humbling, but it's like just this huge weight lifted off of your shoulders.
Yeah.
Knowing that you can give all of that to him and that he will still have your back and he's still for you and the greater good of you and your future. And so I would go ahead and stack on relieving on top of humbling too.
For sure. It's also that idea of it changes how you approach this life. At least it was for me. Like when I truly encountered the Holy Spirit and started following God and continuing to walk with him, the more able I feel even when I'm not able. It's like knowing that I don't have to put on the facade in this front of I've got it all together.
Right.
That I can truly come into the fact that, no, dude, I'm human.
Yeah.
Like I still get upset at my kids and my wife, and I'm better. I'm the goal, even the goal of this podcast is to get better in those things. But I think that the first step in that is recognizing that there's a disconnect between the person that you've been created to be and the person that you are now.
Yes.
And it's like you see the gap and you realize I'm going towards that.
You dial that and start dialing it in. Yeah.
With that, I'm curious if you were to step fully into your God-given purpose, like what would be different about how you show up to your life in business?
Man, that is a really tough question because if I don't know what fully stepping into my God-given purpose even looks like.
Yeah.
But I mean, from what I'm getting from it and the understanding that I have of it right now, it's locking in, really filtering out the sin and getting rid of all the sin in my life. And I think that would go back to what we were talking about before originally, time.
Yeah.
I think that would add a lot of hours onto actually getting things done, being productive. And so I think my life would probably look a lot better if I did that more often, which is what I'm striving to do.
For sure. Yeah. And I think it's interesting that a lot of times, back to the time thought, we think we have a time management problem, but we have a priority management problem. We have like you mentioned, a distraction management problem. And if we can truly align with not only the why, but the who behind the why.
Right.
And I feel like that's a big thing that in this personal development space in general is it's super easy for us to get caught into this idea of the why, which the why is important, but even more than the why, it's the who. Like the who are you becoming and unbecoming to get you to be that space that you should be.
And who are you now?
Yeah, exactly.
And really looking in the mirror and looking within and seeing who you really are now and being honest with yourself. Because it's so easy to lie to yourself and put on this front, even not only with just other people around you, but in the mirror.
Definitely.
And man, I was thinking of something just now where I read it. I don't know if it was, I can't remember what book it was, but it was a quote that said, procrastination kills dreams.
Yeah.
And so I think that the enemy wants us distracted. He wants us wasting time. He wants us wasting the time that we have in this life, and he wants us to procrastinate. And I think that's why it's so easy to just slip into procrastination and laziness,
1,000%.
because the enemy's actively like pushing you to do that without us even realizing it.
For sure. No, that's so good. And I believe too, it's once you make the decision to do something, whether it's like step into a God-sized dream or a new career path, you're always met with that resistance. Even as we've been planning to get together for this podcast for how long now? And
months.
Everything has came against us literally as we're talking now. Like I don't think it's coincidental that it's perfect timing, that things needed to get done. Yeah. And this is the only time that things can get done. And and I think that's so huge. I think so many of us don't think of that.
It's a short window too.
Yeah.
I don't know if whoever hasn't seen my podcast or whatever, if you haven't seen my podcast, if you haven't heard of it, I've actually interviewed Red on my podcast, Kingdom Business Interviews. But what I was getting at was, man, I had a flight this morning. Yeah. Because I'm a student pilot, and I'm editing on things that I'm working on for I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I got a lot going on right now. My wife is blowing my phone up like, when are you going to be home? We got to go to
Yeah.
church. And so the
For
window
sure.
right now from, going and doing flight training, flying over at Cattle Mills,
Yeah.
and then, coming here to record the
Racing here.
podcast
Yeah.
and then go and meet my wife at church is like, it's a short window. It's so easy to slip, to let those windows slip out of our fingers.
Yeah.
It's so easy. And the reason why it is so easy is because, like I said, the enemy is wanting us to make those decisions.
sure.
He's constantly tempting us with those decisions and choices to make. Oh, we can put it off. We can just reschedule. We can take care of our responsibilities tomorrow. And he wants us to procrastinate because he knows that separates us from our God-given purpose, and that separates us from where we really want to be and where God wants us to be. And it starts this chain effect and a snowball effect in a negative momentum way that drives us further and further away from God.
Definitely. No, I love that. And I love that you mentioned the becoming a pilot thing. 'Cause I
Yeah.
think that's super cool. That's one of those things that you're going after. And I'd be curious, what what is it that you've learned from your flight training, your pilot training, that you apply to other areas of your life? Like maybe it's your
Oh
business or
man,
maybe it's your family.
a lot. I'm pretty early on in it. I only have about 50 hours.
Yeah.
I only have 20 of them are solo in a small little Cessna 150. But there's so many different things that I've been able to relate to flight training. And it's in the plane, it's the same thing, man. If you're not watching everything and you're not being completely honest with yourself,
Yeah.
and you're like, hey, okay, my heading indicator's got to be, so you got to know what direction you're going. If you don't set your heading indicator to your magnetic compass, you're not going in the right direction. It's telling you that you're going one way, but you're actually going another. And if you don't set your altimeter, it's telling you that, hey, you're at this altitude, but you're actually at this altitude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So if you're not watching all those things, and within a split second, you can lose 200-300 feet just because of a little gust of wind, or you're trimmed down too much, or your trim nose up too much, or whatever. Just things can happen like that. And if you're not paying attention and you're not staying diligent like God calls you to be, your life can go downhill real bad, and the devil can get a hold of you.
Yeah. Definitely.
When you relate that to being a pilot, and then you integrate that into your life, it's like you got to know that there's a slim chance, or not, or even not just a slim chance, but there's a big chance that if you don't do what you're supposed to be doing up there in that plane, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
And so it's like when you bring that
Yeah.
and implicate it into your life,
Yeah.
it's like that's what it's doing, is it's literally killing you. It's taking away the time that you have on this earth,
That's real.
and that's your life. So
That's so real.
so that's one way that I really, integrated into my day to day.
That's so good. Man, and I love that. I'm curious, what parts of yourself do you hide or diminish around others? And what would change if you brought these parts forward?
That's always something that I work towards, man. A lot of it is like insecurity. I try to hide my insecurities. I try to hide my flaws and stuff, and it's like we do it unconsciously.
Yeah, dude.
Like it's something that it's just that we're accustomed to. And I think it's because the desire for comfort is very tempting. You know what I mean? And so when you get out, it's okay. Sometimes you don't want the spotlight to be on you, because you're afraid of what it might reveal, and you're afraid of what those people might think of you. And so you're afraid of truth.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's real.
And so I try to catch myself on that, and just try to be as honest and true as I can possibly be when I'm around people. But it's funny because that urge to want to lie, that urge to want to cover things up, it always comes. It's always there.
Yeah.
It's nice now, being as close to God as I am now, and being as strong in the faith as I am. I'm not saying that I'm just like this.
Yeah.
I have this great relationship with God, and that I'm this perfect person, because it's obviously something that we're all working on. But now that I'm a lot closer than I have ever been, it's a lot easier to fight those things off and to remain true. And it's good for the long run, because that's where your self-awareness comes from. That's where your tools come from to be able to combat that thing, and to be able to make progress, and to be able to get closer to where you want to be faster than you ever have.
Definitely. So
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I'm
Cool.
tracking. That's great. And I think it's important. Another aspect of this podcast is really looking at not only the dreams and the goals we have, but seeing how we can accomplish them. So I'd be curious, and we've talked about it, but we haven't really talked about it, so I'm excited to hear. What is your impossible dream? What is that for you?
Man, it's to be free.
Okay.
It's to obtain freedom and to help others obtain freedom. Loved ones, family, friends. Like, I grew up in poverty, man. So it's a big deal for me to get to that place, to get to that financial freedom.
For sure.
Because I know it's possible, and not only is it possible, I know it's necessary because I experienced what I experienced when I grew up. My dad was an alcoholic. My mom's a drug addict. My dad died when I was 14. Even though he was an alcoholic, he was still somewhat most of the stability that I had in my life. And so when I lost him, all the stability and all the structure and all that sense of safety just went away. And all of that, most of it, sadly, because that's the way our world is today, most of that was financial. And that's probably my goal. That's one of my main goals, is to be free, be financially free. And not only free financially, now that, like I said, I'm getting closer to God and I know what's more valuable, most valuable, is being free of the mind, just breaking free of those chains that the enemy wants you to be stuck in. Addiction, whether it doesn't even have to be drugs. It can be food, gluttony. It can be lust. It can be anything like that. I just want to be free from those things, man. And that way we can live up to our full potential and what God really wants us to live up to be.
That's good. That's so good. And I love extracting that impossible dream and goal for you. It's that freedom, not only for you, but for your loved ones and those that you feel called to impact.
Yeah. And I just talked to my mom last night, actually, for the first time in a while. She called me and talked to kids and stuff, and we started talking about what she needs to do to get out of that rut and just break out of that addiction. And she said, I wish I just had a rich son to give me some cash. And I said, you know what? I wouldn't give you cash. I wouldn't, like, if I had that kind of money. I told her I'd put her somewhere nice, in a place that she wouldn't want to leave from. Like a nice beachside resort style rehab or something. But she would have to stay there. She would have to get clean, and she'd have to get close to the Lord, and she'd have to really do it on her own. And where I'm going at with this is, you can put her in the nicest resort style rehab in the world in Hawaii next to the beach or whatever, but if she's not in tune with God, and she's not understanding of how she's going to overcome those chains, overcome those addictions, overcome that hardship and that hold that the devil has on her, there's no amount of money in the world that's going to be able to help her.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's that idea of, I feel like for a lot of people, they have to get to a point where the pain of remaining is greater than the pain of change.
Yeah.
Because we hear the cliche all the time, you choose your heart, because it's hard to go to the gym every day. It's hard to eat clean. It's hard to be financially free and responsible and steward the money that we've been given. It's also hard to be obese and out of shape and have diseases. And I think that when we shift our mindset, and that's a big thing too, is like you made a great distinction there, is you said your mom mentioned, I wish I had a rich son to basically bail me out of this.
Yeah, get me out of this addiction. And it's like,
if she had that, she'd still be in the same place.
Exactly. And it would be even worse because she would be enabled.
Exactly. Because poverty is a mindset before it is a bank balance.
Yep.
And I think that's such a huge piece that a lot of people miss. And that's why I've done the work that I've done. Our stories are a little similar. My parents weren't alcoholics or on drugs, thankfully, but they made their own choices in poverty. And it's very easy when it's that close and you've seen it that way to either replay the cycle or change the cycle. And I feel like what the challenge is in that is finding the tension of not completely running away and being the complete opposite, because that's not always the answer either.
Right.
But it's finding the common ground.
I love that you mentioned change, because a lot of people, they don't like change. But what they don't understand is that things change anyways.
Yeah.
And
Change
so
is inevitable.
change is inevitable. You're gonna experience change, but you can either experience the bad side of change
Yeah,
or the good side of change.
for sure.
Because everything around you is always going to be changing. You can't control that. You can't stop it.
Yeah.
And if you don't do something about it and you don't change and
Yeah.
adapt, then you're going to be outgrown and you're going to be left behind and you're going to be left in the dust, and it's not going to be good for you.
For sure.
And so it's, for example, like the food. I talked about food earlier. It's okay. If you don't change the way you eat, our food is not getting any better. The food out that we have available to us right now is just getting worse and worse. And if you don't change the way that you eat and the way that you look at food, you're going to continue to get worse and worse with it.
Doing nothing is still doing something. Yeah.
And so if you're not doing anything, if you're not working out, if you're not eating right, your body is just going to get worse and worse and worse. And so even though you're not changing your lifestyle, you're remaining the same. Your body, like your decisions are remaining the same. Your body is changing whether you like it or not. And so if you don't like change,
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough life.
like you said, choose your hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like it's hard to go to the gym, but then it's hard to be out of shape. And when you get older, it's just going to get worse and harder and harder. And so I think what I'm getting at is temporary pain is worth it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And temporary pleasure is not. So you choose your pain. You choose that temporary pain, that tough decision to get up, don't hit the snooze, go to the gym before you go to work, don't eat that donut, whatever.
Yeah.
You put yourself through that temporary pain so that you can live the life that you want to live and do the things that you want to do and get that growth and get that positivity.
Sure.
Because if you don't, you're just separating yourself from it.
I want to direct you back to your impossible goal and your impossible
Okay,
dream.
yeah, let's go.
And
Still got a little time.
who do you think that you need to become or unbecome to achieve this impossible goal or dream?
I need to kill off my old self entirely, dude.
Yeah.
And fill myself up with the Holy Spirit. Because if you don't, that little bit of evil that's in all of us, sin, is just constantly it's going to anyway.
For sure.
But the stronger that you become, spiritually, and the closer that you become to God,
Yeah.
the easier all that stuff's going to be to fight off.
Yeah.
And so, I'm sorry, what was the question again? I
No,
lost my train of thought there.
That was it. No, I was just asking, who do you feel like you need to become or unbecome for you to
Yeah,
accomplish
so
that
I need to
impossible goal?
become closer to God, stronger in spirit.
Definitely. What does that look like practically?
Practically,
Yeah.
it means disciplining yourself to read the Bible, to study it, to really understand it, and then putting in the effort to implicate it into your life, catching yourself in those moments of all of those negative emotions, whether it be anger, annoyance, frustration, hate, arrogance, ignorance, laziness, procrastination, catching yourself in those moments and really, continuing to look within and continuing to look to God more often than you do now. Like way more often.
That's good.
And even though, like I said, I'm closer to God than I've ever been, I still got a long way to go.
We all do.
Still a lot of ground to cover, for sure. And I don't know that I'll ever be able to cover it all, but I know that as long as I'm seeking and as long as I'm putting in the effort and disciplining myself to, go in that path, because that's the path that God wants us to go in, then I'll be much better off.
Yeah. I think it's funny when you get to a point of wisdom, you realize how much you really don't know. And it's funny because it's like you think your first initial, whatever it is, like we'll use Christianity because it's our example. Our first time we find God, we feel, oh, we're amazing. We can share to every single person we know about Jesus. And then the longer you learn, you walk with him, he begins to refine you. And you're like, oh, wow, I really am an awful human being.
Yeah.
And you're not, but
Right.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you notice how much more you have to go, and
You want to be better.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to get better.
It's not from a condemnation. It's from a conviction of better, so you do better.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest thing. It's like
That reminds me of another pilot reference.
Yeah. Go for it,
A
dude.
good
Yep.
pilot is always learning.
Exactly.
They actually have a condition, what they call macho man condition, in a pilot in the aviation world, the general aviation. It's where if you go in there with the attitude of you know everything, then you're more likely to have an accident. You're more likely to
Facts.
put yourself into hardship
Definitely.
because you're not being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
You don't know everything. You're never going to know everything. There's so many different things that you can learn and that you don't even know about now that you can incorporate into your life to improve and to make yourself a safer pilot or a better person in life.
That's good. That's so good. Dude, I love this. I think this has been a really good conversation. We've got some time, but before we wrap up, I want us to look at some things because I want you to walk away with some practical plans of action for what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, like circling back to the lack of time or the need of managing time, I'm curious if you could only focus on one thing this week that would make the biggest impact, what would that be?
Man, I would say mental clarity.
That's good.
Just taking away that worry, taking away that anxiety of, man, I gotta do all this stuff right now, and then just focusing on the most important thing, which would be God and your relationship with God and your mental, your spiritual toughness, your spiritual fitness, I should say.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, because I look at mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. I look at them all as like muscles. The more you work them out, the more you spend time addressing those 4 different aspects of yourself, the stronger that they become.
Yeah.
And so it's not just like focusing on one or the other 100% of the time. It's like massaging them all, keeping them all where they need to be. And obviously spiritual needs to be number 1, I believe, because if you don't have faith, you're not going to be able to do anything.
Literally, yeah. No, that's good. And I love that thought process because I picture it like you wouldn't work out your chest every single day.
Right.
Like you wouldn't work out legs every single day.
Some people do.
Some people do. They don't work out legs, but that's a whole other conversation in itself. It's funny to go off a tangent. They say that leg strength is like the big determining factor of longevity because a lot of elderly people fall. So this is your thing at home. Don't skip leg day.
Don't skip leg day.
If you want to have a long, prosperous, successful life, abundant life, you better do some legs.
I'm so guilty.
Dude,
I'm so
I go
guilty
through
for
waves.
skipping leg day. I'm the world's worst.
Dude, I love leg day because for me, it's always been my strongest muscle. So then, like, when I was young, it was almost like my ego lift because I was like, I can do heavy squat and press. Now I'm just like, I get sick of being sore.
Dude, I'm the type of guy, like, when I was really in the gym heavy all the time, I could bench more than I could squat.
Oh, man.
That's how bad I am
That's tough.
when it comes to leg day. I got chicken legs, man.
That's funny. But to continue on this idea of the practicality of things, what's one habit or practice that you need to stop because it's slowing your progress?
Man, there's so many.
If you could only choose one.
I would say just giving into procrastination. I would say procrastination above all else. Like it's because of, and I guess practically you could probably say like the phone.
Yeah.
The phone. Because that's the biggest
That's real.
that's the biggest tool or the biggest distraction in my life right now. And that's social media, getting on Facebook, seeing who's checking my stuff out, seeing if I'm making any money on all of my posts and stuff like that. I would say that limiting that time would be super beneficial for me. And that's something that I've already told myself. That's something that I'm working on now.
Definitely. I feel like that's what we all have to continue to work on.
Like I'm trying to be more of a creator, producer, instead of a consumer.
But that's your excuse though. I get it because I'm there with you. And you have an excuse to be on it because you're studying.
Exactly. But like really I'm
You're
consuming.
Yeah. No, that's real. I'm curious. I know.
Like I'll intentionally get on to produce and create.
But then
and study, but then it's you see something that sparks your interest for a second, and then you find yourself just scrolling for 15, 20 minutes before you realize, dude, I'm wasting so much time.
Yeah, that's so. I'm curious. I know I'm guilty of it, and I'm working on it now. How soon do you pick up your phone when you wake up in the morning?
I've gotten a lot better. Yeah, I've gotten a lot better. Probably used to, I'd grab it as soon as I got up.
The second you woke up.
Yeah, the second that I woke
Same.
up, my first thing is like to go get on the toilet in the
You're
mornings.
like, I need my phone.
And so I'll grab my phone, but lately I've been disciplining myself not to do
good.
that because I actually,
good.
to combat that, I started putting my phone in the kitchen,
That's good.
charging it on the kitchen
Nice.
kitchen counter, and I'll leave it in there. And so when I get up in the morning, it's nowhere in reach, and I would have to go all the way to the kitchen to go get the phone, and then go all the way back to the bathroom to do my morning routine.
Too many steps.
You know what I'm saying? So that's helped.
Barrier entry.
Yeah, so that's helped out a lot. But just honestly, like after my routine and on the toilet, I go grab the phone still.
For sure.
And check it. Sometimes I don't grab it. Like I'm still trying to discipline myself. It'll be on the charge pad, and I'll just go over there and tap it and see the notifications. And just, I don't know. It gives you that dopamine hit.
Even just seeing the notification. Yeah.
It's you're doing something that morning.
Yeah.
You're taking care of some type of business that morning. So I guess it could be a good thing in a sense, but at the same time, it's that gateway to open up and start endlessly scrolling or consuming and wasting your time.
Because if that's the first thing we reach for, then that's the first thing our mind's going to go to.
Yeah.
That's where
It becomes muscle memory.
Literally.
Yeah.
And if it's a dopamine hit too, then it's that addiction. It's literally an addiction to a dopamine.
Turns from a habit to an addiction. Yeah.
Literally, real quick.
Bad habit.
Man, that's tough. But so you mentioned one thing to focus on will be not procrastinating.
Yeah.
And
cutting out the distractions.
Cutting out the distractions. How will you know you made progress in this area? What does success look like for you?
So for me, you'll get to that point to where you free up so much time where it's like you finally realize, wow, this thing has been holding me captive for a long time. Because there's always going to be something that you're wanting to work towards and get better on. And for me personally, it's been to really crack down and study the aviation ground school to get ready for the FAA written test to get my private pilot's license. That's been I'm like, I need to study, I need to study, I need to study. And then once I started really trying to put the phone down, catching myself, checking the screen time every day, checking myself when I'm at work or when I'm home and I have time to study instead of wasting that time on the phone, scrolling through pointless and mindless things, using that time to be productive into something that I want to do with my life. Yeah.
That's good. Dude, it's been a great conversation.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I'm curious, before we wrap up, what would you say has been like the main takeaways you've gotten from our conversation?
Man, just to crack down. You crack down on that, cutting out the distractions. And the phone's just one example.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many.
Literally won't. Yeah, we didn't have much time to dive deeper.
Yeah, so many other things.
For sure.
Talking about the phone, it's not just the phone, it's everything that you can do on the phone.
Yeah.
Whether it's scrolling on Facebook, whether it's shopping on Amazon, whether it's shopping on Zillow, looking at houses, imagining, dreaming, whether it's looking through photos of whatever. There's just so much on this phone that can distract you and take away your time, and it's not going anywhere. It's going to be there. You can put it down and you can focus on what you need to focus on now. I'm talking to myself here and anybody that needs to hear it.
That's so right.
But yeah, man, just cutting out distractions. And I guess going outside of the phone, it could be when you're driving home and you know that, and you're hungry and you know that you got food at the house because you just spent money on groceries and you got a fridge full of food.
Yeah.
Seeing McDonald's, that big McDonald's sign, or seeing Chick-fil-A or something, and you get that urge to just stop in there and spend money you don't need to spend on something you don't need right then and there.
So good.
That's a big one too, is food. For me, like I mentioned earlier, like that's been a real big distraction for me. Whenever I feel like I'm being, or I'm bored, or I'm not doing anything, or I just don't feel like going to study, but I got to be doing something.
Yeah.
And so my mind and my body's just like, well, go get you some food. Let's eat.
That's real. Yeah. And it all contributes to all of it.
Yeah.
If you're going to buy more food, then that's taken away from financial freedom.
Exactly.
Oh man,
exactly.
That's so real. Man, you already mentioned the actions that you're taking, so I don't have to ask you that one again. But man, how can I best support you and pray for you moving forward?
Man, I just pray for clarity, patience. Like I said before, when we started out, a big thing for me was like just being anxious, having that feeling that I need to get it all done now. I need to
Yeah.
do everything now. Just pray for patience.
For sure.
Pray for comfort, even though it's in uncomforting times.
Yeah.
Pray for comfort for me being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Pray that I'm
Being
comfortable
comfortable in the uncomfortable.
being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because that is where miracles can
Yeah.
happen, you
That's
know.
real. That's real. I also want to encourage you. I feel like the Lord shared with me a few years ago, and it's something I still sit on. And it's this idea of, because I'm right where you are, and especially like a few years ago, I could feel like even more so, just the anxiousness and the weight of feeling like I don't have enough time to do all that I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hearing when you're describing
Yeah.
that. So I feel you.
That's what I meant by like insecurity.
Yeah.
Because you get this sense that you can't do it and that you're not good enough. And it's just, those are just lies from the enemy.
Exactly. And the one thing that really spoke to me that I've been standing on is I feel like the Lord was saying to me, you're becoming more by doing less. And that's really hard for anyone that's a high achiever that has this idea of wanting to do. There's all this doing that needs to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how much can be accomplished when we make space and the person that we're becoming on the other side of doing less. Because when we free up our mental capacity to dream,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying go be idle and do nothing
Right.
ever. Obviously, that isn't. There's people that listen to this podcast and they're far from lazy. And I know you're far from lazy. You're out there doing it. And I just want to encourage you in that is really sit on that, because that was one thing that I felt has really helped me here recently, is that idea of slowing down to speed up.
Yeah. Because what that does is, and this reminds me of this video that I've seen before, it allows you to really figure out your priorities.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing.
And I saw a video one time where a guy, he took a jar and he like filled it with the small things
Yeah,
first.
I saw that. That's so
and
cool.
then he tried to fit the big things, like the important things in there after he'd already put the small things in there, and it wouldn't fit. But when he dumped it back out and he put the top priority things in there first, and then he was able to pour all the little things in, and it was all going to fit. So the ability to be able to prioritize what's most important in your life, not only recognize it, but actually prioritize it and implicate that into your life is huge. Because just because of the order that you're putting those things in, it makes a world of difference. It's gonna be the determining factor whether you're going to be able to do it or not. And so that's what I got out of what you were just saying, and that was a huge takeaway for me.
Definitely.
So I think that could be a huge takeaway for everybody else too.
I think that's good, man. I always say, go till you're full, and I feel like we're full here. What if you could be a part of something that doesn't just change lives, but transforms generations to come? Something that equips men to lead their families, businesses, churches, communities with clarity, confidence, and purpose. That's the vision I want to share with you today. Hi, I'm Coach Red, and for years I've been helping Christian leaders break free and chisel off limiting beliefs, discovering their true identity, and boldly stepping into their God-given calling. Through my coaching business, content creation, and the unique Red Print framework, I've seen lives transformed, families restored, and leaders equipped to make an eternal kingdom impact. But now it's time to go bigger. I'm building the Better Than Best Academy into a movement, a legacy dedicated to empowering Christian leaders. Because when we build stronger leaders, we don't just change their lives, we build stronger families, stronger communities, and ultimately a stronger, better purpose-filled world. Here is what your investment will go toward. Building a team of world-class coaches, mentors, and also those that will help facilitate and administrate and really take care of those that we are called and created to lead. Then it's also going towards creating systems and infrastructure to scale the Academy's impact and reach, upgrading technology and production gear to deliver the higher quality content and resources that will match the already higher value that we've been given, developing programs, resources, and events that inspire and equip leaders to live out their purpose boldly. But it's not just about the systems or the technology or the gear. It's about the lives that we'll touch together. When we invest in building men into leaders, we create a ripple effect that transforms families, churches, businesses, and the entire community. Imagine the impact of a generation of leaders fully aligned with their God-given identity, stepping up to lead with integrity, character, and purpose. Think about it. Strong men build strong families. Strong families build strong communities. And strong communities can change the world. That is what your partnership will accomplish. A kingdom legacy that leaves an eternal mark. To bring this vision to life, I'm seeking partners who share a heart for kingdom impact. Whether you're an investor with a passion to empower others or someone who sees the potential for long-term growth in this space, this is your opportunity to make a difference. Your investment isn't just funding a project, it's fueling a movement. It's creating an impact much greater than you and me. I believe we have a unique opportunity in this life to answer one or two calls. I visualize it like there are two phones sitting on a table. One is a call to purpose, a call to fulfillment, a call to living a legacy and impact. The other, a call to fear, average or below average. And we have the opportunity to pick up one of those phones. So I want to ask you, friend, which phone are you going to pick up? Are you going to lean into comfort and complacency and thinking about your four and no more? Or are you going to answer the other call? The call of purpose, the call of impact, the call of servant leadership, the call of transformational leadership, the call that says, I am going to make an impact, not only for me and my family and my friends, but I'm going to make an impact that we will see on the other side of eternity. Are you going to answer that call, friend? If you are, then I can't wait to have that conversation with you so we can partner and really build what God is wanting to build through this vision that I feel like He's given. Together, we'll equip leaders, restore families, and create transformational resources that change lives for generations to come. If this resonates with you, send me a message or comment below on this video. Let's talk about how we can partner to build something extraordinary, something that builds the kingdom of God and leaves a lasting legacy. Together, we can make a real impact. I can't wait to have that conversation.